Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be focusing on some finishing drills. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be focusing on a pattern which is going to be looking at a touch and finish and then combining quickly to then receive a ball from out wide as well. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. Now, in terms of players for this week, we're going to have 10 outfield players plus a goalkeeper, but we can adapt this for more and less players as well. So obviously if you've got a smaller group for your training session or you're looking to work with attackers more, okay, you can obviously have a group of 10 or 8 or 12, okay, and if you have more players, then obviously you can look to add different passes in and routines to get the ball out wide and obviously to work the ball into the striker. Now, in terms of the equipment, we're going to be focusing on using balls, bibs, cones, and then if you have poles or mannequins to use for the patterns of play, that would be good as well to obviously replicate defenders in there. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, so from the goal line here to the striker's start point, you're going to go between 20 to 25 yards, okay, so obviously you can adapt that depending on the age group that you're working with as well, if you want to take it a little bit closer. But we want to give it enough space for us to take a touch into space to finish just outside the box, okay? And then the distance from these players here, okay, to the start point, again, between 10 and 15 yards. And you want the wide players, obviously, if you've got half a pitch, okay, you've got a full width of pitch, just use as much as you can, okay? But ideally, you want between 15 to 20 yards either side of width. Again, like I say, just use as much space as you can. If you're really working on a quarter of a pitch, it's going to be less, and the cross might just have to be a fizzed ball across the floor instead. So with the 10 players, okay, you're going to have 2 groups of 5, so they can compete for this as well. And after a set time, you can swap them round, okay? Now, the player is going to move off the pole or the mannequin to start, okay? They can move either side to receive. So they can move off this side, receive, to touch, and then finish. Or they can move off the other side, receive, touch, and finish. Now, as soon as the player has finished, they look to drop back in, okay, where they receive the ball and then set back to the player at the start. Once that's happened, they're then going to play to the player out wide. So they're looking to play the ball in front so this player can move on to the ball, and then they're going to time the run into the box, ball gets delivered, and then we look to finish. Now, if you wanted to do like a point system for competition, it could be 1 point for the touch and finish, 2 points for the cross, but for it to be 2 points, the cross has to be in the air, so it can't just be slid across the floor. It can be bouncing, or it can be played high for a header or a volley. Now, once the play's finished, okay, the player who was at the start will go and be the crosser. Crosser becomes to be the finisher. Finisher goes back to the start, and then the opposite side will go. So then this player can move off, receive the ball, touch, finish, then they get themselves back in. So nice sharp movements, okay? We're being alert, ready to receive the ball. Then we're playing in again, and then it's timing it. Don't be in here before the player's received it. Okay, we're spinning off, okay? And then as the contact spots get made, we can make that movement into the box to time our run onto the ball, to then finish again. Wide player comes the striker, start point goes wide, players move up, and then we go from there. And like I say, after a set amount of time, the teams can swap over, so they're going to be receiving on the opposite side, they're going to be crossing with the left foot as well, so you want to try and teach that for the players using both feet to cross the ball. So focusing on the timing of our movements, okay, our shot selection, okay, a positive first touch, and then our composure in the final third. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now moving into the second of our patterns of play. Now this one's going to be timing a run, okay, to receive as like a third man runner, okay, and then we're going to be doing a quick fire finish after that as well. Now in terms of the setup for this part of the session, okay, so we've got a goal line here, okay, so you want these two players here just to be just off the penalty, the 6-yard box, okay, and a little bit wider from it. Now this player here is going to be 20 yards from goal, okay, with these players here and an extra 10 yards away from that, okay, and then these players here an extra 10 or 15 yards away. So you're looking at about 20, 30 and then 45 in total really here. Now the width, these players will be just outside the width of the goal, okay, so you're talking about between 10 and 15 yards with these players just a further few yards away from that. Okay, so you can probably go maximum 10 yards either side. Now, how it's going to work is these players will be finishing, okay, and this player will be finishing as well. So this player is going to look to receive the ball, okay, and then they can either play first time or touch and play, and they're going to play to the wide player. Okay, so they're going to play to the wide player who looks to come off their line to receive it and touch inside. As that's happening, this player looks to spin off around them because this player is going to then set to the middle player, okay, looks to drop in, and then they're going to look to drop that ball into space for this player to finish first time, okay? Again, so we're focusing on that shot selection, adapting to where the ball is. Now, as soon as that ball has gone in, okay, this player will then receive the ball from the wide player here, okay? So they're going to adapt to receive, touch either side, and finish, okay? Now, that's that set over, and then we're going to work off the opposite side. So the movements are, the player who was at the start point will move to be the wide player, okay? The wide player will go to be this setter here. This setter here follows their pass, okay, to be the central player here. The central player then gets to shoot again, okay, by becoming the player here who makes the third man run. And the player who took the first shot goes back to the start point. So then, if we work off the opposite side, this player looks to receive the ball, okay, so again, they can play first time. This player looks to move off their line here, touch inside, okay, so we're focusing on nice quick movements. This player looks to move in to receive, set it into space, okay, and then we're moving on to finish. And then what we'll see then is this player looks to create space to receive the ball, okay, touch either side and finish. Now as progression, if you wanted to, or if you've got extra coaches, you can put a coach in here. So then when this player is receiving the ball, okay, to set into space, okay, there's a bit of pressure on them, okay, there's pressure on the touch, okay, and then again the coach can stand here, so when that ball comes in, okay, you're going to close down an angle, so they've got to take the ball on the opposite side, so we're putting a bit of pressure on the touch and keeping it match realistic. So again, start point moves out to here, this player moves to there, this player moves to here, this player moves to there, and then this player goes back to the start point, and we just keep rotating, so players will go off opposite sides. So to start with, to let the players get used to it, work through it quite slowly, focus on the movements, okay, because we don't want players standing still. And it's be nice and sharp, we want to focus on taking the touches into space, and then movement onto the ball to finish. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, now moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now moving into a small-sided game-based scenario, okay, which is going to be focusing on finishing. Now, we're going to split the pitch up into different areas. So, in terms of the setup, okay, for this part of the session, you can either use the full width of a box, okay, or because we're going 5v5, I'm going to bring it in a little bit. So, we're going to look to use about 25 yards of width, okay, you can increase that again, maybe to 30 or so, see how it goes. And then in terms of depth, okay, we're going to have 35 yards of depth. Now, this area here, okay, so we're going to be going in this little area here. You can either go to the 18-yard box or just short of it, okay, and then you'll have a gap from there to these players here as well. And this area here is just going to be between 5 and 10 yards, okay, so you're leaving either 25 yards in here, or you can increase that a little bit further to 40 if you wanted to, and kind of have 30 yards in here and then an extra 10 yards there. So these players are locked in, okay, and these players are locked in. Now these players here are allowed to move into this area, but aren't allowed to move into this area, okay? So to score in this area here, the team will get 2 points. So we're getting the ball, okay, in and around, okay, the penalty spot, okay, the width of the goal to score. If the players score in this area here, they get 1 point, okay? Similar, if this player gets the ball here, takes a touch out and fancies having a shot at goal and scores, there's 1 point. What we're focusing on is these players in here being alive. So when the ball ricochets about, can they look to finish? If a player has a shot, can they look to get in there to finish as well? So after a set amount of time, the players can swap over, okay? And this player, obviously, they get a little bit more rest here as well. So the coach will play into one team, and they're looking to score as quick as they can. So when this player receives the ball, this player might move out, this player might follow, there's a touch, there's a finish, 1-0. Okay, then they get the ball again, okay? Then they can get movement. So this player can move in, okay? And then it might automatically create space for this player to receive it, open out, score. There's 3-0, 2 points in that area. Now, there's no forward options on, okay? So let's say this player receives the ball, okay? And there's no options to play forward. Use this player, okay, to then entice players to move out, okay? Sorry, this player's got to stay in there. Entice players to move out, okay? And then we could find a player to bounce into, play into this wider area, then we slide in and then look to score. Now, as soon as the other team wins the ball back, they can score. So the Reds in that area then could have had a shot, hits the keeper, and then this player gets it. There's 2 points for that team. Then they receive the next ball, okay? They've got a good chance of punishing the opposition. Okay, as soon as they get it, there's another point and so forth. Team with the most points after a set amount of time, or until, let's say you've got 10 balls, until 10 balls have gone, okay, will win the game, they'll get a point, and then the teams look to swap over. So again, focusing on our finishing, being composed in the final third. Now focusing on how quick we can play, so can we play 1 or 2 touch, focusing on our body shape to receive the ball, working the ball out of tight areas, and then our shot selection, so we're looking to go low and hard into the corners, okay, and then from distance, okay, are we looking to curl it into the corners, are we looking to use more power, okay, so making sure that the players are staying focused at all times, they're staying composed, okay, and they're encouraging each other in that final third to take shots on goal. We'll now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view all of our exclusive content. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.